So what is it about traditional media you think that turns off young people so that they're attracted to Vice?
Well, a couple of things. I think every generation you have a changing of the guard in media.
Right.
Woodward and Bernstein were the punks of their generation, and now they're the old guard. By definition, when you have a changing of the guard, you have a different language. If you have a different language, then the people who are in the status quo say, well, that's not news because you're not doing it the same way I'm doing it. So when we look at it, we say, look, we're going to go to a story more in a documentary filmmaking standpoint of we press record and let the story evolve, rather than there's a fire at City Hall, get me 2 pictures, you know, and shoehorn in the story. So it's a combination of Gen Y having a different language and there being sort of a changing of the guard with digital online content.
But you have a lot of the old guard, the old school, so to speak. Tom Freston is involved, Rupert Murdoch is involved. Do you think that that's a contradiction in having them involved in something that's so focused on Gen Y?
No.
Because?
Because I think, you know, I've gone on record saying I want to be the next MTV, the next CNN, the next ESPN rolled into one. But if you look at that and you look at the history, MTV had to sell to Viacom, ESPN to Disney, CNN to Time Warner. Now, what we've done is we've amassed a dream team with Tom, with Ari, and we've done, you know, a very small deal with 21st Century, which allows us to expand internationally into India, into European markets, into South America, while maintaining our independence and while being able to have our own voice.
You said young people are angry.
Very.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, I think if you look at the economic disenfranchisement that's happened since 2007, 2008, young people are affected a lot more than anybody else. If you look at what's happening, Arab Spring, for example, was an uprising caused by economic disparity, economic hardship, young people being angry, the riots that are happening in Europe. We're embedding with the communists, the anarchists, the Occupy movements, and they're all training. They're learning how to arm themselves, they're learning how to occupy, they're learning how to fight for the next economic downturn, which they know is coming. And they're going. And what we've seen up until now is going to be a picnic compared to what happens next.
Well, what did you think of Dennis Rodman's latest trip to North Korea?
That's a loaded question. We figured out a way to get into North Korea and show a side of North Korea that's never been seen by doing basketball diplomacy. After that, we sort of parted ways, and he's gone on to do what he does. We have nothing to do with that. But, you know...
Don't give an old media answer.
It's weird. How about that? It's a weird thing.
That is an old media answer.
Come on, you sound very old media.
We celebrate the absurd advice, and it's an absurd country with an absurd guy, and, you know, fair play.
But you have watched him on that. I mean, there was a lot of people involved in diplomacy that think that that was very hurtful and damaging.
Why? I don't think it was. I think if you look at it, and I've gone on record saying this, I grew up at the end of the Cold War, when there was, let's point a lot of missiles at each other and not talk and have propaganda on both sides. Commies eat babies. You know what? We should always talk. We should always have dialogue. We should always understand everyone. Our people. When people saw a documentary on it, and at the end you see the kids lighting up about basketball, they're people just like us. Regimes are not necessarily, they don't represent the whole country. People should talk.
In the piece leading up to you, Shane, where it said critics say sensational and serious, not serious, comparing tattoos and high-fiving each other, how do you respond to the criticism about Vice?
I've never seen any news article that we've ever done where we compare tattoos or high-five. But if they're reduced...
But you know what I mean.
But if they're reduced to talking about our journalistic style because of the clothes we wear, then they're in trouble.
See, I think that anybody can have any journalistic style they want to. I also think you're laughing all the way to the bank.
Well, I just laughed, so I guess I am. Look, we're doing well, which allows us, the more money we make, the more content we can make, and that's what we want to do. We just live to make stuff. We have the greatest, creative team around.
But guess where he sits on HBO?
Yeah. Well, and this is a really good point. You know, I can tell you the times in my career where people have said, well, young people don't care about news in Washington, or they don't care about foreign news. Right. Exactly. And how interested are they in those subjects?
Tremendously. And that's a great question, because when we started, not only with HBO, but on our YouTube channels, everyone said, look, here's the three rules. Make it short, make it snackable, and don't talk about politics and don't talk about anything foreign. So, of course, we did long form, political and news, and we had the highest time on site for all of YouTube at 28 minutes versus 2 minutes. We had the best likes versus dislike, the top video completion, all the metrics online that everybody goes crazy about, because young people are very interested. It affects their lives. They're just not interested in the way that it's presented to them today.
And what do you think is the most fascinating thing about Ukraine?
Well, we have 3 crews there right now. What I think the most fascinating thing about what's happening in the Ukraine is the pro-West versus pro-Russia. When you go to Russia, I'm always shocked, and I go there quite a bit, at the anti-American, anti-Western rhetoric that is almost Cold War level. I mean, it is shocking at how they are really demonizing the West and demonizing America. We don't have economic problems. America caused our economic problem. I mean, it is shocking. And by the way, it doesn't bode well for what's going to happen in the Ukraine.
Actually, it's a good example. You see that in the way they're covering what's happening in the Ukraine today.
Correct. Yes.
You wouldn't recognize what we are hearing in Russia from what they're saying.
100%. Kerry coming over seems to be an act of aggression. Meanwhile, they have troops going in with their insignia ripped off.
All right, Shane Smith, Vice TV. I like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.